Hello, thank you for taking the time to listen to me as I share about the importance of learning communities in pre-service and in-service teacher development. My name is Maria Hyler, and I'm the director of the Washington, D.C. office and a senior researcher with the Learning Policy Institute. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with the Learning Policy Institute, we are a nonprofit, nonpartisan educational research and policy think tank under the leadership of our president and CEO, Dr. Linda Darling-Hammond. We conduct, collect, and disseminate high-quality research to improve education policy and research and practice. We work closely with policymakers, researchers, and other stakeholders to advance evidence-based policies that support empowering and equitable learning for each and every child. Now that I've shared a bit about myself and my organization, I'd like to give you a quick overview of what will be covered in the next 40 minutes or so. First, I'd like to situate the importance of learning communities in the science of learning and development and what students need to learn and thrive. I will then share the landscape of the elements of quality teacher preparation based on the science of learning and development and how learning communities fit into that framework. I will then end by sharing research on the elements of effective in-service teacher professional development. So when we think about teacher learning, we must address the question of what kind of educators are needed and how do we develop and support these educators to transform teaching and learning, which leads us to the quality learning experiences for teachers. We need educators that break out of the traditional ways of teaching to a focus on 21st century knowledge and skills. I'd like to share some of the research on the science of learning and development and how that research has shaped what we know students need to learn, thrive, and grow both academically and socially, emotionally, and subsequently, what our educators need to know and be able to do to support that type of learning and how that can be supported in teacher learning communities. So what do we know from the science of learning and development? We know that relationships are the essential ingredient that catalyzes healthy development and learning. We know that children actively construct knowledge by connecting what they know to what they are learning within their cultural context. Related to these two principles is the knowledge that learning is social, emotional, and academic. One cannot only be concerned with the content of learning. We know that students' perceptions of their own ability influence learning. And we know that adversity affects learning. Effective schools must be trauma-informed and healing-focused. Taking these principles into consideration, we can see clearly what students need to learn, grow, and thrive. First, students need positive learning environments that include supports for positive, trusting relationships, physical and emotional safety, and a sense of belonging and purpose for each and every student, no matter what their race, gender, country of origin, religion, or any other identity. Positive learning environments also include classroom communities with culturally competent teaching practices that help teachers know their students well and address stereotype threat. This goes back to the principles of relationships, the connection between social, emotional, and academic, and students' perceptions of their own ability. In addition to positive learning environments, students need rich learning experiences that build on their prior knowledge, offer relevant, engaging tasks, enable inquiry, acknowledges neurodiversity, and offers universal design for learning supports that also eliminates stereotype threat, replaces competition and comparison with collaboration, supports growth through feedback, reflection, and revision, and teaches metacognition, cognitive strategies, and learning to learn. The science of learning and development also helps us understand the conditions that students need for social, emotional, and academic development. Students need regular and consistent opportunities to learn and integrate SEL and cognitive skills throughout the day, educative and restorative behavior supports that foster belonging rather than exclusion, and guidance to develop skills, habits, and mindsets that promote perseverance, resilience, and agency, such as executive functioning, stress management, and growth mindset. These elements, positive learning environments, rich learning experiences, conditions for social, emotional, and academic development, necessitate well-prepared and effective teachers who are able to create these types of science of learning and development-based learning environments and opportunities. Given all that I just shared about the science of learning and development, What does this mean for educator learning? Research shows us that educator development should emphasize both learner pedagogy as well as content pedagogy. This includes knowledge of and support for child and adolescent development and learning across all domains, development of practices that support integrated social, emotional, and cognitive development, the development of a curricular vision that supports progress across domains, the development of cultural knowledge and competence, including capacity to engage with families and communities, the development of a wide repertoire of skills and resources for scaffolding student learning and meeting student needs, and development of practices for teaching metacognition and strategies for learning to learn. This development has implications for teacher learning in pre-service preparation, as well as in-service professional development. When we think of teacher learning and pre-service education, we know that high-quality teacher preparation programs include a coherent vision of learning enacted across all courses and clinical experiences, a strong knowledge base in development and learning applied to practice, modeling practices within university and clinical settings, an immersion in settings that support cultural and pedagogical learning, careful child study focused on contexts and learning, performance assessments in which candidates demonstrate practices, ongoing feedback, consultation, and collaboration, and engagement in research about practice. When we see teacher preparation that looks like this, we see teachers who are prepared to teach in ways that align with the science of learning and development. I've given you the what of teacher education. Now let's turn to the how of teacher education. We need to think about the learning experiences of our new, aspiring, and accomplished teachers. And this is where learning communities are critical. We need to create experiences that model equitable and empowering practices for educators. Teachers need relationships that support change, peers, coaches, leaders, families, and these need to be sustained through communities of practice, very similar to what students need to learn, grow, and prosper. The bottom line is everything students need for their learning, educators need as well. This is one of the findings that came out of the study conducted by the Learning Policy Institute and published in the 2019 book, Preparing Teachers for Deeper Learning. We studied 7 teacher preparations from across the United States. You can see them here. They're a diversity in size, whether they're private, public. A couple are minority serving institutions, and we have one district-based preparation program, High Tech High. And we studied these 7 programs to understand the key features of programs that were shown to be highly effective in preparing teachers for deeper learning and equity. We also sought to understand common barriers to designing and implementing teacher preparation programs that prepare teachers for deeper learning and how programs are addressing these barriers. Finally, we sought to understand the implications of our research for practice and policy. This study helped us to better understand how teachers can learn these skills. The findings on the how of teacher learning and preparation includes principles that are aligned with the science of learning and development and outline the type of learning experiences that are key to deeper learning and equity for our PK-12 students, but also for teacher candidate learning as well. These experiences are learning that is equitable and oriented towards social justice, learning that is developmentally grounded and personalized, learning that is applied and transferred, learning that is contextualized, and what we're focused on today, learning that occurs in productive communities of practice. The science of learning and development tells us that learning is an active, interactive, constructive, and iterative process. Well-designed and well-tended social interactions allow students to support or scaffold one another's learning, combining their different knowledge and experiences in the collective knowledge and experience of the learning community, and helping students to move from peripheral to core participation in subject matter learning connected to real-world activities. School and classroom communities are built on an ethic of caring, offering supports for social emotional development, trusting relationships, restorative practices to create suitable learning environments for all students. All of this is true for teacher learning as well. All 7 programs in the study created structures, used practices, and nurtured relationships in which the teacher candidates themselves were continuously engaged in productive communities of practice. As learning scientists and anthropologists Jean Lave and Etten Wenger have described the process in other settings, a community of practice is a group of people who share a craft or a profession and work together to gain knowledge related to their specific field. By sharing information and experiences as a group, members learn from each other and develop both personally and professionally. As Wenger has described them, communities of practice have several interrelated components, all of which make learning a social enterprise that engages participants in joint productive activity. By participating together, members develop shared norms and build collaborative relationships that make them feel part of a community. They develop a sense of belonging to a group of people who contribute to a collective enterprise, teaching in this case. They also share a repertoire of practices that define their work. Participation in the community, learning and sharing practices leads participants to develop their identity as a member of the craft. In this case, they become teachers. One example of a pre-service learning community is the cohort model. This model consists of groups of 10 to 15 teacher interns taking courses together and being placed in the same field experiences and in the same school for student teaching. Most of the programs in the study used a cohort model to structure teacher preparation in communities of practice from the moment students entered the program. Pre-service programs organized in cohorts and clinical work within teaching teams create professional communities in which teachers can observe one another, share practices, develop plans together, and solve problems collectively. The cohort model can enable authentic professional collaboration for candidates and provide experience with building positive relationships and developing learning communities within their own classrooms. A cohort can act as a source of support for candidates learning to teach and developing adaptive expertise as they learn how to collaborate, communicate, integrate multiple perspectives, and give and receive feedback. Cohorts not only serve as an organizational structure to support the learning of teacher candidates, it also models for them the importance of building authentic relationships with students, as well as developing learning communities within their own classrooms. Communities of practice should be thought about expansively for teacher candidates. We should also think of a learning community as a collection of adults who are committed to the learning of students. In most programs, university supervisors or advisors hold both one-on-one meetings with teacher candidates and weekly meetings with their small group of advisees in supervisory or conference groups of about 4 to 8 candidates. This meeting provides a place for teacher candidates to discuss the issues they face as educators in their field placements. The smaller cohort group provides a venue for collaborative problem solving and reflection that helps candidates learn to engage in individual and collective inquiry about the improvement of practice. The development of collaborative, scaffolding relationships for teacher candidates is also supported by the use of co-teaching models as a means for learning to teach. Moving from the periphery to the core of communities of practice does not end when candidates from these programs graduate. Several of the programs in the study have structures and practices that engage their faculty in learning communities. Trinity University in San Antonio, Texas, for example, facilitates a monthly critical friends group for alumni. This group, which uses protocols to examine and explore dilemmas of practice, gives graduates the opportunity to re-engage with their Trinity professional learning community. The monthly Critical Friends group acts as an extension of the learning communities Trinity develops during the program, allowing alumni to continue to work together with colleagues to engage in the sort of reflective teaching that Trinity aims to instill in its candidates. In addition to providing alumni the opportunity to continue the reflective inquiries into teaching they started as teaching interns, the Critical Friends group can also ease the transition into full-time teaching after the program. Graduates often end up teaching in schools where faculty may not have had the opportunities for collaboration, collegiality, and reflection they experienced as interns. Being able to return to the Trinity community to re-engage can give them the support they need to continue to follow this model of teaching, even when it's difficult to do so. As I've noted, learning within professional communities of practice provides developing teachers mutual support, opportunities to learn from others' perspectives and expertise, and modeling for leading a collaborative classroom. These learning communities are facilitated when preparation programs have strong reciprocal relationships with pre-K-12 schools. These close whole school partnerships are focused on the development of teachers and teaching, as well as learning, with support for pre and in-service teachers through professional learning communities, ongoing professional development, and attention to equity, social emotional learning, and wellness. Ongoing consultation, collaboration, and feedback among faculty, mentors, and candidates support inquiry and growth for teachers. Teacher preparation programs must create structures that give time and space to develop these communities and employ practices that nurture relationships within collaborative learning spaces. One example of such a structure and relationship is the Montclair State University Network for Educational Renewal, which is a key structure that engages and coordinates all of their partner districts. For Montclair State University, or MSU, partner district is more than a title, and partnership means that schools are seen as much more than buildings to house teacher candidates as they complete field placement hour requirements. Districts must go through an application process that include a site visit by MSU faculty to ensure that teaching practices in the school align with their conception of deeper learning. Once a district becomes a part of the network, they have access to an array of resources. Every district that joins the network, 28 at the time of the study, pays dues, makes a commitment to its mission and goals, promises to give Montclair teacher candidates priority in placements, and commits to the learning and growth of their own faculty, as well as MSU teacher candidates. So it becomes one large professional learning community together. Montclair places teacher candidates from all of their program pathways in partner schools within MSUNER for field experiences and student teaching. Within these network placements, teacher candidates are assigned a cooperating teacher who is encouraged to use the co-teaching model. To maintain and grow partnership relationships, the university embraces the importance of leadership at all levels and works closely with district leaders and principals to facilitate learning opportunities for mentor teachers and teacher candidates. This multi-level support system of university, district, and school leaders helps support a cohesive experience for Montclair teacher candidates, particularly when it comes to clinical experiences aligning with Montclair values and coursework. So we're seeing a real link between the theory and practice. MSUNER allows mentor teachers access to collaboration that also builds their skills. Field supervisors who work closely with mentor teachers see part of their responsibility as modeling for mentor teachers how to help teacher candidates learn and grow. Teachers and leaders participate in a wide variety of professional development opportunities, and they're eligible to receive small grants to work on specific short-term projects. School-based clinical faculty members serve on committees and task forces at the university that focus on the renewal and development of teacher preparation. Over 11,000 teachers and leaders in the network have access to professional development activities that MSU education faculty, as well as arts and sciences faculty, provide through the center. Tenured teachers within the network are recruited to become clinical faculty members by taking 3 required mini courses focused on coaching and mentoring, teaching for critical thinking, and culturally responsive teaching. Over half of all cooperating teachers are designated clinical faculty members. MSUNER provides a structure that houses and expansive teacher learning community. Finally, when we say expansive, teachers should think of their learning community as including students, families, community members, and other experts who have knowledge of students and their learning. Teaching must be a collaborative endeavor that taps into the expertise of all members of the community. Family and community members have expert knowledge of their children and lived experiences that teachers can learn about and use in their lesson planning and delivery. Likewise, teachers can offer family members tools and strategies to connect in-school learning to students' everyday learning and problem solving at home. In addition to teacher candidates benefiting from learning communities, teacher educators also benefit from professional learning communities as well. The Learning Policy Institute, in partnership with Bank Street Graduate School of Education in New York City, has launched a network of preparation programs who are committed to learning together in a community. The Educator Preparation Laboratory, or EDPrepLab, is a national network of teacher and leader preparation programs and their PK-12 partner districts who are committed to transforming educator preparation in the United States at the intersection of research, practice, and policy. EDPrepLab started with the 7 teacher preparation programs in our initial study. EDPrepLab started with 15 teacher and leader preparation programs from across 10 states, which included the original 7 programs from our study. 2 years later, now we have grown to 30 programs across 15 different states. But this slide shows our founding members of the network. The work of EDPrepLab is centered at the nexus of research, practice, and policy, like I said. These areas can be discrete, but are often overlapping and definitely inform one another and drive the work of this learning community. We launched EDPrepLab with an inaugural convening in June 2019 and made the decision early that all member convenings would be an important way for the network to build a learning community and work together toward building a profession-facing research, practice, and policy agenda. Our inquiry and working groups have developed organically, many from the first convening, during which participants organized themselves to dig deeper into pressing shared problems of educator practice. These groups are a way to share practice and innovate together around a particular issue in a more immediate way, while building a set of shared resources for the broader field of educator preparation. Some of these groups have gone on to create more formal cross-institutional research projects. When COVID hit, we immediately began reaching out to members to see what they needed, and that was the genesis of a Learning Cafe series, which was a space for members to come together to share, learn, and support one another. Our first working group, dedicated to examining racial justice and educator preparation, came out of this series, which pivoted in June to examine the implications for educator preparation amidst a national movement for racial justice. As we began to collect resources from our member institutions that could be shared with the field as exemplars, we launched a series of co-authored practice briefs to describe and provide tools to others engaged in pressing issues such as social emotional learning and preparing anti-racist school leaders. The focus on policy has been intentional and strategic. We cannot create change simply through research and practice. EDPrepLab works with state policy makers and national policy partners to advance policies that support educator preparation for deeper learning and equity. This work includes developing and advancing shared policy agendas, engaging EDPrepLab program leaders and faculty and connecting them to policymakers and policy organizations with the goal of transforming education across the country. Policy briefs are an important tool that we are still building out to help to communicate information about policy ideas aligned with research and backed by examples of exemplary practice. They are often accompanied by other methods of communication, such as blog posts or policy forums. While policy is one way we seek to impact the field, we also are committed to sharing the practice and research of EDPrepLab members in cross-institutional research presentations. We submit proposals for national and international conferences focused on educator preparation. Finally, we're so excited to announce the launch of the brand new redesigned EdPrepLab website, which will serve as the premier destination for education preparation, research, practice, and policy resources. Please visit the website at edpreplab.org. So I just wanted to share an example of a learning community that is focused on impacting the field, as well as focused on their own continuing improvement. I'd like to now pivot for this last part of the presentation to focus on in-service teacher professional development and professional learning communities. In 2016, the Learning Policy Institute conducted a study on professional development. We examined 35 methodologically rigorous studies that demonstrate a positive link between teacher professional learning and student learning outcomes. Our purpose in doing so was to identify and describe common features of effective professional development programs, building on a significant existing literature in this area. I'm happy to see a beginning paradigm shift in the way we view teacher professional development. Traditionally, teacher professional development in the United States has often been lecture-based, what might be called sit and get or drive-by learning, that offers the same content and strategies to all teachers, regardless of their skills and experiences, and is largely divorced from teachers' day-to-day practices in their classrooms. Research has showed us that there's a better way to engage in effective teacher professional learning. I'll take a few minutes to go through each of these elements that were revealed in our literature review. The first element of effective professional learning is a content focus. Strong PD is focused on the content that teachers teach in their classrooms. Programs demonstrate this characteristic when, for example, they offer opportunities for teachers to construct lessons and units for a new curriculum or investigate how students learn specific concepts in a subject area. Content-focused professional development is often job-embedded or specific to the curriculum and strategies teachers use to support their students' diverse learning needs. Essentially, the content provides the what of teacher professional development. As you'll see, the other 6 elements address the how. One theme is that effective professional development engages teachers in various forms of active learning. The use of this type of learning in many ways exemplifies the paradigm shift I just discussed. Rather than offering lecture-based workshops, active learning offers teachers the opportunity to engage meaningfully with new concepts and teaching strategies by analyzing, discussing, observing, and practicing them directly. Active learning is a broad term that subsumes some of the other elements we'll discuss, such as collaboration. Teaching is a collaborative endeavor, and we've just spent the last 30 minutes talking about teacher learning communities. So perhaps it's unsurprising that effective professional development supports collaboration among educators. And in this study, collaboration can take many forms, with teachers working one-on-one with a coach in a small group or as a part of a learning community that extends beyond the school. In some cases, technology can be a helpful support in making sure that teachers have access to these collaborative opportunities. For example, remote mentoring programs use technology to connect coaches and teachers, and online forums offer opportunities for peer-to-peer collaboration in online learning communities. Collaboration often occurs in job-embedded contexts as teachers plan together, offer each other feedback, and problem solve. Teams within a school can provide a forum to support teachers' learning as it relates to their classrooms and students. By providing teachers with models, professional development programs offer teachers a clear vision of best practices. There are many types of models that can be employed, including, as you can see here, curricular resources like lesson or unit plans, student work or teaching cases, and observations of peers or master teachers. Several of the studies in the report indicate that these types of models are perhaps more supportive of teacher and student learning when they are provided to teachers alongside training and other supports. Effective professional development programs also provide coaching and other expert support to facilitate teacher learning. These experts, usually educators themselves, often lead teachers through the active and engaging experiences we've been discussing and tailor specific advice and counsel to the needs of individual teachers. They may also share their expertise about specific subject areas or evidence-based teaching practices through individual or group coaching. This type of expert scaffolding, whether through one-on-one coaching or small group work or a professional learning community, can help teachers create a bridge from professional learning to their daily practice. The next element, feedback and reflection, commonly occurs within the confines of coaching, though it is not limited to that space, and powerful teacher learning opportunities, regardless of format, offer time for teachers to reflect on and receive feedback about their practice. While these elements are distinct, we combine them for the purposes of the paper because they often work together to support teachers as they move towards the expert visions of practice articulated by professional development. And we know that accomplishing all this takes time, so effective professional development must be of sustained duration. Research has not offered any magic number of hours for effective program. Instead, it indicates that providing opportunities for teachers to study deeply and then apply their learning in cycles of inquiry over time is essential. That can be accomplished using a variety of structures. Often it involves intensive workshops that sets teachers up to apply new approaches in the classroom, and then opportunities to reconnect, to debrief and problem solve together. Sometimes it involves initial learning experiences followed up with classroom coaching or combinations, or a combination of these features. And as you can hear, these are often in professional learning communities, because professional learning communities are groups of teachers who are together over time, both in service and pre-service. One specific example of a professional development model operating at scale that ties together all of these elements is the National Writing Project, a teacher network that provides professional development to support students' writing and learning. Today, I'll focus specifically on the National Writing Project's College Ready Writing Program. The College Ready Writers Program is specifically focused on training teachers to support argument writing among secondary school students, a content focus. It does so by providing curricular resources, formative assessments, and of most interest for us today, professional learning for teachers. As part of the program's PD, teachers engage in a number of active learning strategies, such as analysis of student writing, participation in writing lessons as learners, and observations of demonstration lessons. And many of the activities, including co-planning and co-teaching writing lessons, are also collaborative in nature. Throughout the program, teachers work with specifically trained teacher mentors to discuss, reflect on, and set goals about their teaching. And the program involves around 90 hours of professional development over 2 years, with numerous touch points for teachers over time. So how do we create conditions for effective professional development for our teachers? In service specifically. Even the best designed professional development may encounter challenges with implementation that limit its effectiveness. For example, there are any number of school level challenges that have shown to be obstacles to effective professional development, including inadequate resources. This includes financial support, but also materials such as equipment for lab experiments or projects-based learning. Teachers also sometimes contend with limited opportunity to use newly acquired knowledge in their classrooms. In one study we reviewed, a teacher received professional learning related to science instruction, only to have time for science removed from the schedule entirely. So she was unable to have science instruction in her classroom. School culture can prove a powerful deterrent to effective professional development. For example, in one school, teachers mistrusted leadership and therefore lacked buy-in to the mandated professional development offered, even though it was high quality. This is one reason that school leadership, which I'll talk about in a bit, is so essential. Challenges to implementing effective professional development extend beyond the school and classroom. These challenges include a lack of alignment between what teachers feel they need to learn to best meet their students' need and districts' initiatives and priorities. Likewise, there's often a disconnect between state and local policies. For example, states generally require seat time for recertification, which in turn encourages districts to organize one-off workshops that are easy to schedule and require less human and financial resources than do evidence-based approaches to PD. Relatedly, very few states and districts have robust tracking systems for professional development that includes both quality as well as quantity. Without such systems in place, it's hard to adopt and implement professional learning for teachers that is evidence-based and designed to address potential obstacles. All of these challenges can be addressed through thoughtful policies and more strategic implementation, however. Thank you again for taking the time to listen to the research I've just shared with you today. First, grounding everything in the science of learning and development and what students need to learn, grow, and thrive. Then looking at the landscape for effective teacher preparation and how learning communities fall within that framework. We also looked at an example of different examples from programs within our study of professional learning communities. I shared an example of EDPrepLab and a professional learning community of teacher educators. And then I finished off with talking about professional learning, effective professional learning, and how learning communities fit into effective professional development. You can find a report here at this URL. You can also see here my contact information. Feel free to reach out and see me as a resource. I look forward to answering any questions that you may have. Thank you very much for your time and attention, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Bye now.